This is advice for myself first. It's about superstitions. I suffered with superstitions. I still suffer with it. Um, I'm not gonna get into why, what, or whatever. But this is something important for me to try to remember this. And if it helps somebody else, it's good too, I guess. But superstitions, this one thing I'm gonna say will prove why superstitions is just BS in your head. Okay, so for instance, Muslims are supposed to pray and do a fours. For example, I'm going to use like when the fours prayer, let's just say Zuhr namaz comes and the fours, it's time to pray. You're at the mosque and the imam is leading the prayer and the prayer is just begun. And you just got done doing wuzu and you're in the mosque and you're supposed to go pray. Then you get this superstitious thought, and it's like these OCD thoughts where you feel like you need to do some kind of ritual or something, and just before you can move to the next thing, you have to do some kind of ritual. For example, I'm giving. That's how these OCD things or superstitious things work from my experience. You get like these rituals that you feel you need to fulfill until you feel relieved. So, ordinarily, I'll get back to the praying part, but ordinarily, in everyday life situations, you get these thoughts and you feel like you need to do some kind of ritual, whether that's like touching a doorknob more than 2-3 times until you get like this ugly thought out of your head. Then you can move forward to something else. So that's just one example, but there's these other rituals, but I think it's all from shaytan personally. It's just a way for him to keep us occupied with this BS, and it's just like a trap. I think that's all OCD is, and superstitions is a part of OCD. And that's just one form of OCD. Obviously, there's other people that have like them cleaning issues, but I think it's all interrelated with shaitan just messing around. But OCD isn't the only thing that's superstitions related, but I'm just using that as an example. But superstitions in general. But anyways, so the reason I'm saying that part is that's everyday life. Say you're going to work and this and that, and then you gotta go see if the door is locked, or you have some superstition thought, so you have to, I don't know, touch the wall 5 times or touch the floor before you walk out the house, something like that. People go through that stuff. But anyways, it bothers, a lot of that stuff messes with me too. So the reason I'm saying why all that is BS is because this stuff goes through our head and we don't think clearly. We just let it cloud our judgment, and we're not thinking about the bigger picture. Because when we analyze what we're doing and we think about it logically, Shaitan cannot mess with us as much as he can if we don't think about it logically. So we need to literally sit down and analyze and think logically. Because when you put a knowledge and logic behind your actions, you can think clearly of what's right and what's wrong. But he makes us, when we do this stuff, think of things of trying to just fulfill the ritual, but not think of logically what is it and why are we doing this. You're so occupied doing this stuff, you never think about why and what's the logic behind this. So that's why this one thing, if you think about it clearly, it will prove that all these superstitious stuff is just in your head and it's not true. So to get to the point is this. I just want to give a back history of it. So now coming back to this praying example. So now say you're at the mosque, you did wuzu, and prayer started for Fajr, Zuhr namazes, a Fajr namaz, the Imam already started the prayer. And you're supposed to go pray behind the Imam, obviously. And you did wuzu, so you're walking towards the namaz, and then the prayer. Then say you start getting these ugly thoughts. What are you gonna do? Like, you start getting these ritual thoughts. You need to touch the floor or something 3 times. I don't know. It just happened. You tripped on a wire and you feel like you need to go over that wire like 3 times. What are you gonna do though? You got 2 choices here. You could either go and do the namaz and say, forget this ugly thought. This is a force. I need to go pray. I can't even waste a second because it already started. Or you can fulfill the rituals, which is gonna take, let's say, I don't know, 20 seconds? Let's just say it takes you a minute, who knows? And then you go finish the prayer, or you start the prayer, and you already missed about a rakat because of that. But the thing is, you missed even a second, or 20 seconds, or a minute, just because you did this ritual. So that ritual is just whispers, waswas from shaytan, messing with your head to be occupied with something other than what Allah has told us to do, which is pray. So if you think of that, that alone gives you the answer. Because technically we are not even supposed to miss 1 second when we're walking towards that force, which is an obligation. We cannot let 1 second, if we have the capability to walk to it, we can't just say I'm gonna go do a ritual, fulfill this, and then go start the prayer. Because that's wrong. That tells you that this is from a different source coming from your head, which is shaytan just messing with you. And if I am to take my time and do this ritual, I am basically playing into shaytan's trick. So now that we established that this is from shaytan, it tells us in this small example of me basically walking to prayer, I need to literally go walk to the prayer and not listen to this thought and do even 1 second of that ritual. Because, like I said, I'm putting my prayer on hold, my obligation on hold, to do a ritual of which is obviously coming from shaitan. So since we established that, that means we already confirmed that this is from shaitan and this is something just wasting our time, because we already know praying is what's important and what's obligation, not doing this ritual. And since we established that from this praying example or any force example, that confirms that this is from shaitan, which means now we can transition the same concept to everyday life, which it tells us that anytime you get any thoughts related to anything, now if we go back to even that doorknob example, where I'm walking out the house and I feel like I need to touch the doorknob or touch the wall 5 times, now if I go back to thinking about that praying thing I just said about shaitan basically is trying to waste even a second from me walking to start my prayer, if we use that same idea on the doorknob example now, then we realize, since we already established this thought is from shaitan, and we shouldn't even listen to it for a second, because we're going to be missing a second of the prayer, then there's no point of listening to it when it comes to this doorknob either when you're going to work, because we already know this is from shaitan. So if you're not going to listen to it before starting your prayer, what's the point of listening to it for the doorknob? Because it's from the same source. So the reason I brought up the prayer example is because that makes us think logically, because how are we putting our prayer to the side just to do a ritual, even for a second? It doesn't make sense. So if it doesn't make sense for prayer, that already gave us the answer. It's from shaytan. And then when we go to leave to work, there's no point of touching the doorknob or going over a wire or, wasting even a second on anything, because we established the source of the problem. It's from shaitan. That praying in that force gave us insight, gave us a clear understanding of where this thought and these thoughts are really from. It's from shaitan. And if we can ignore it to for the prayer reason, we can literally ignore it for any reason throughout our whole life. And then we can finally cut shaitan off. Because that way, once you understand it logically, you think about it and it makes sense, and then you say, you know what? I know he's trying to give me these fear tactics or superstitious thoughts or whatever the reason, but I already thought of this logically, and now I'm going to cut him off because I cut him off for the prayer or any forced obligation reasons. So I need to cut him off for any other reason, even that's not related to the religious stuff. So that hopefully breaks it down in a logical manner and gives us a clear understanding of where these thoughts and all this stuff is coming from. Another thing is, when you do cut him off, see, I'm still struggling. As much as I'm saying all this, I still struggle with this stuff. But when I thought of this, it made sense. And then I'm like, okay, it's like once you cut him, or think about it logically, then you start thinking, why am I listening to it? Because it doesn't make sense. It makes sense when you think about it clearly, though. Logically, like I said, about the prayer thing, because he shouldn't even have the ability, or we shouldn't let him waste a second of our, from taking away from our, what is obligatory. So if it works and applies in a religious fashion, when it comes to forced obligations, wajib, and all that stuff, then why shouldn't the same idea, concept transfer over and apply to real life activities that are even non-religious? So it should basically apply in our whole life, because we already established the source, and it's from shaitan. So literally we shouldn't pay attention to him when it comes to religion, force, obligations, or even worldly activities in general. Like I said, before you leave the house or in the house, when you look through your phone, if you need to touch the buttons 20 times, regardless, we already established the source, so it should apply to everything. That's what makes sense. Oh, and as I was saying, I don't know why I made this video so long, but sometimes I suck in getting my words out as how I want to. So I'm trying to just say as many words as I can, so it can at least get the message across, even if it's longer, because I don't have that talent where I can speak in the shortest, simple amount of words and get my point across. But anyways, what else I was going to say is, if we practice this enough and we decide we're just going to cut him off, and we're just going to cut him off because we already thought about it logically, and we established that this is from shaitan. The more we cut him off, and we cut him off right from the base, as soon as he starts the thought, we cut him off, then eventually he's not going to use this in his arsenal to mess with us anymore, because he knows we're not falling prey to it, we're not falling into it anymore, we're past it. And then he's probably going to try to attack us with different whispers, because that's all he has in his power, is to try to mislead us with his whispers and trick us. So he'll try different approach to whisper us with something else. But this is, I think, for myself, a good way to try to get over him and his thoughts. Because the more you pay attention to it, that's what I noticed, is the more he will try to sink you in and mess you up with these thoughts. Because the more you care about the thoughts, the more it messes with you in your head. The less you care, it just erases kind of. And this is a way to basically not care, because the fact that you understood logically the source of the problem, and then you're not going to care as much because you already established this from shaytan, and these are just like air. The thoughts are just air that you're listening to, and we're listening to, and it's just fake basically. So why listen to fake thoughts? But the thing is, if you don't think about it logically the way I broke it down, it's kind of like we start believing the thoughts, and even though we didn't think of it or where it's from, we just start thinking like maybe this is true. But you just got to break it down, and we just got to remember how Islam tells us stuff like how shaitan is gonna whisper and try to mislead us, and these thoughts are from shaitan. So I guess I'm gonna leave it at that. Maybe if this helps anyone, or if you have any questions, or you're confused about what I'm trying to say, I guess you can ask me. I mean, I'm not a scholar, I'm just a sinner. I'm not a good Muslim at all. I'm not gonna tell you how bad of a Muslim I am, but I'm not a good Muslim. But I'm just trying to say this. Maybe it'll help somebody. But I'm not. The reason I'm saying I'm not a good Muslim is because I always say this whenever I talk about anything related to like whispers or Islam or anything like that. Is because I don't want people to get the wrong impression, thinking, oh, look at this guy, he thinks he's a good Muslim, or I don't want to be a hypocrite, basically. That's one of my biggest fears. I don't want to be like those people that act like they're good, then behind the screen or behind whatever they are like a hypocrite. They act like a bad person. So I know myself I'm not a good Muslim. So I just am trying to be helpful. So I'm not going to try to pretend like I'm a good Muslim, because I feel like if I talk about a subject of like something related to Islam at all, people get the wrong idea and say, "Oh, this guy is being like he's trying to act like he's good, but he's not good." So I don't want to act. I'm being straight up. I'm not a good Muslim. I know I was better at one point, but right now I'm not a good Muslim. I want to be a good Muslim, but I'm not at this point in my life. But but like I said, I'm just saying this because inshallah it'll help me, and I could watch this video again in the future, and maybe I'll forget some of this stuff in the meantime, and I could rewatch it and remind myself, and inshallah it helps someone else also along the way. So I'll leave it at that.